So I went to see a friend yesterday, an old friend, someone that shall remain nameless, but someone I've known a very long time. And they're in the hospital. And when I went to see this friend, I haven't seen them in a long time. And it was something I chose to do simply because we'd become disconnected. But one of the things that I think all people have to come to terms with is their responsibility to the people that have been in their life and maybe left their life, and the part you played in them leaving. And even if you feel that you're blameless, the part you play in maintaining their dignity, um, honoring the connections you may have had in the past. So I went to see this person, and I wasn't sure what to expect. And they're older than me significantly, and they're in the hospital for some mental dysfunction, and and that may very well be part of the reason why I distanced myself some years ago. Wasn't really sure what to expect when I went, but when I did, it was radically different than what I had expected. I had expected to experience a combination of sadness or um, disappointment or some kind of emotional fallout. But in actuality, it wasn't like that at all. It was very placid, and this person had always, through the duration of my relationship with them, they'd always been a what I call a complex personality, someone who indulges in behaviors that were either very complimentary and respectful, or very demeaning. And and there's a constellation of behaviors that happen around people who indulge in that kind of stuff. And what can I tell you? That's why I chose not to associate with them for a very long time. However, when I went there, as I said, it's almost like their delusion had more or less taken over their personality. And I guess the best part about the delusion, it was the positive delusion, the positive aspects of it, where no matter what was happening to them, they were determining that it was a positive experience. And to some degree, it almost felt like I was interacting with someone who was on autopilot, someone who I mentioned to my father, someone who was almost like you're interacting with a character in a video game. And it was very, very interesting. And actually, I'm actually quite relieved that that's the case, because they're in a situation now where they've almost become what they pretended to be for years. And and so be careful what habits you indulge in. As I've said before, be careful what you indulge in, because you get good at it. You get good at whatever you practice. But that leads me to what today's video is on, and that is your perspective. So perspective is a funny thing. It can really skew the way you look at the world. Another funny story that happened to me about 2 weeks ago is I got up in the morning and I was expecting to go to church. I usually rise to about 7 and church starts at 9:30. And so I got up and did my thing. But I have a son who lives at home half the time. And one of the things I refuse to do for adults in my midst is enable. And part of enabling is, allowing or having to mind their affairs. And that includes getting them out of bed in time for their appointments, just as a learning measure. I don't know if I'd do that if it was a boarder or something, but I certainly am not going to do it for my son. In any case, 8:30 came, 8:45, and I'm saying to myself, okay, great, now it's going to be time for another lecture. A lecture that I haven't had to give in at least a year and a half. Because this kind of stuff used to happen. And, as a father, you have a responsibility. You can enable or you can teach. I choose to teach. But anyway, 8:45, 9 o'clock, and it takes half an hour to get to church. And then 9:15, 9:30, until finally it was 9:45. And then I heard the steps and, coming down the stairs. And there was my son. And no, I didn't jump up and down or anything like that, but I wasn't, hey, I didn't jump on his case right away. But he proceeded about his thing, and I proceeded to announce to him. I said, "Well, what's going on? You're late." And he said he didn't think he was late, and I didn't explore the topic any deeper. But I said, "Well, if you're going to stay living in my house, you got to start going to bed at midnight, and this kind of shit doesn't happen anymore. You can leave." I was pretty civil about it, but in my mind, the fallout is that now he'd missed church, and there it was. And it's true, I could have gotten my car and driven to church, but I saw it as a teachable moment. So anyway, humming, back and forth a little bit, and I said, well, fine, just go into town. We'll go for breakfast and do a couple things. So we got all dressed up, or got our clothes on, etc., and proceeded to drive into town. I live in the country, if you can tell. In any case, as we're driving along, just in our dialogue, I said, well, how are we going to spend this Sunday afternoon? And he said, it's Saturday. And I'm like, what? He said, it's Saturday. And in that moment, my entire perspective was blown away. For whatever reason, when I went to bed, I woke up. I sleep very well, but for whatever reason, I woke up and I thought for sure it was Sunday, and I had conducted myself as if it was Sunday. And even my dialogue, I do my level best in these Middle Ages to not be some, loose cannon who's just waiting to go off on people. And I didn't. But I did, display my disappointment. And so, as I said, in that moment, I discovered, it's Saturday. And so I had to eat humble pie. I had to sit down. I had to apologize to my son. I had to say, you know what? I was wrong. I don't know what was going on. This is the best joke the universe or God has played on me lately. And I'm all in. I'm in for jokes. Sure I am. And in that moment, my perspective completely changed. And it was a beautiful thing because, I went for breakfast, went to the farmer's market, which I hadn't been to in a long time, did a couple of things. It was almost like I had this free day, which to be blunt, if I had woken up and known it was Saturday, well, I would have gone about the normal routine and worked. And that was how perspective really, really skews things. Sometimes I meet people, I'm not going to go down way to say I'm the world's greatest giver or things like that, but occasionally I will meet homeless people and, in the street or whatever, begging. And in the past, I'm sure everyone who's productive always thinks to themselves when they see an able-bodied homeless person, they think to themselves, well, why don't you get a job at McDonald's? Or why don't you get a job, even the squeegee kids, when I was younger, those are the kids who come up and clean your windshield in hopes that you'd give them some money. Even that was better than just giving these guys money. But oftentimes when you engage these folks in conversation, you will find that they have, if you pose the question, oh, why don't you get a job? Invariably, it's going to be you're going to receive a defeatist statement. And that defeatist statement will be something like, oh, no one wants to hire me, or I'm always sick, or, insert whatever negativity you like. But they have allowed that negativity to pervade their life. And now it defines them to the point that that negativity actually has taken everything from them. It's probably taken away their relationships. It's taken away their home. It's taken away their ability to make an income till they're at their very wit's end. So now it's hard for me to judge people in that circumstance because, again, at the end of the day, it's perspective. I meet a lot of different people out in the world, and one of the things one of the groups of people I meet a lot are women in my age group. And, women and men, but I don't know, certain things to talk to men about and certain things to talk to women about. And one of the things I will talk to women about in my demographic, especially if they're single, is like, how's the dating? And by and large, the response I get is that it's terrible. Ranging from there's no good guys, everybody's irresponsible, nobody wants me, humana, insert whatever negativity that is stereotypical that you can look up online. And that is what I hear. I hear it from men a little bit too, but I'm less inclined to talk to guys about it because, I don't know, it's weird for a guy to talk to a guy about that. Now, but once again though, I do feel that is perspective. Because personally, I personally don't have that problem. I don't know why. I like to look at the world as being, the glass as being, more than half full actually. I like to look at the world as the glass being 3/4 or full. But when I hear those things, from the homeless people, from my friend who, has been overcome or like is now in the hospital, any of the examples that I've given you, when I hear those things, there's a part of me that wants to evangelize them and say, no, you've got to think positively. You can do it. That's what all the big guys and, the really successful people think positively. But that can be a hard thing for a lot of people to do, especially when they feel that there's negativity on all sides. And it's hard to escape from it. It has skewed their perspective. So when you look at your life, and one of the things I've touted in all my videos, when you look at your life, and this is going back to the Peterson thing, sit on the end of your bed, figure out the things you're really screwing up with, and then, move forward. So if you determine your life areas that you're not happy about, maybe you're not happy with your employment, maybe you're not happy with your romantic situation, maybe you're not happy with your friends. Think about it in terms of, imagine you're going through your fridge trying to figure out why every time you cook something it tastes like garbage or it turns out poorly. You've done you've looked up the videos, you've this, that, and the other thing, but for some reason you're consistently not being able to get the results like you see on the cooking show. So then you start to break down, okay, am I getting the freshest ingredients? Is there something wrong with my stove? Is there a problem with my time perception? Like, am I leaving it on too long so it burns? You sort of break these things down to the core ingredients. As you're trying to investigate, you say to yourself, I have this perspective, imagine your perspective is, I'm not a good cook. Well, then you want to break that down further and say, okay, what aspect is making it so I'm not a good cook? Because, let's face it, it's true you can't be a Michelin 5-star chef the internet's a great equalizer, and there's a lot of great, step-by-step recipes out there. HelloFresh has done a lot to revolutionize people's ability to say they're good or bad cooks. But and then you investigate, and some people come through it and go, yeah, I figured it out, and and then they become better cooks, and et cetera, et cetera. But perspective is also related to, let's go one step further and pretend you're hanging out with people who are not good cooks. They're terrible. And they're watching you cook. You got a group of friends getting together, they're watching you cook, and every time you get together with them, it turns out like crap. But then you look a little further and you find out that, well, they're not good cooks either. What are the odds if you keep hanging out with them that things are going to get better? Maybe maybe in regard to your money. Maybe you're not happy with your job or how much money you have or the opportunities you have. And you look at your social circle and it looks like those people aren't happy with theirs either. Either they're in dead-end jobs or low income or they don't spend their money right, or things like that. And, it's water seeks its own level. And so then you say, am I like them? They're skewing your perspective. And so one of the best things you can do for perspective is to actually, I hate to use the word reinvent, but at the same time, you almost have to sit back and say to yourself, okay, let's pretend, let's pretend you want to have better relationships with people in general, okay? So you do a stock. You say, okay, I'm gonna write down the 5 to 10 people that I hang out with the most. Are they loving, kind, and considerate? Are they generous to people? Are they conscientious? Do they speak well of others? Are they encouraging to you? Are they encouraging to themselves? Are they an enemy or a frenemy or a friend? And in case you didn't know what a frenemy is, those are the people that to your face, they'll tell you, they'll get together and have a wonderful time with you and everything will seem great. But then when you're not around, they're talking shit about you, because when you got together with them and they're talking nice to you and all that, they're talking shit about other people. That's frenemy. But if they're your friend and they're friendly to the world, that doesn't happen. So like I said, you do that stock. Just say to yourself, okay, I want to have better relationships. So are the people that I'm surrounding myself with creating better relationships? Are they helping me enhance my perspective? Or are they causing my perspective to be shit? Food for thought. Oftentimes talk about voyages of discovery. People can go on sabbaticals where they go off, they separate themselves from their group. Like, let's say a university professor goes on a sabbatical. He completely extricates himself from the institution he's in. He maybe goes to another institution, maybe goes off to a cabin in the mountains. It's a kind of sabbatical. Or a voyage of discovery. There's this walk in Europe that you can go on. It's like 200 kilometers, and you're basically by yourself. And it's established by the Catholics, but it's designed so you can pause and reflect. Enhance your perspective. There is a fairly. You look at the real innovators in our society. The real innovators. A commonality of all of them is that when they were creating their innovations, they more or less did them by themselves, or in a circumstance where they're working these super late nights where there's, some staff are there to help, but they're fanatical in their pursuit of that goal, which is another kind of perspective, but the point I'm making is that they extricate themselves from what is normal or what has always been the standard in life, and they reinvent it. So going back to this thing about perspective, if you are someone right now and you're sitting with yourself going, gee, I would really like to have, better relationships, better money, better job, better living arrangements, whatever it is. One of the best ways you can change your perspective is determine if the people that are in your life are embodying those goals and are, moving in that direction or not. And if they're not, just do an experiment. Just do an experiment. Write down what you would like to achieve and proceed to go after it without their input. That means not talking to them about it. It may mean not even talking to them for a while. If you don't have friends who embody those things that you're aspiring to, perhaps immersing yourself in media from the people who do. The beauty of our modern age is that there's these podcasts and you can overdose on self-help. There's no doubt about it. But even inspirational books, or heck, even just going out and hanging out in nature where you're not even getting the input from other people, and slowly integrating yourself back into the world in a way where you're leaving behind behaviors which in your heart of heart are poisoning the well, creating a circumstance where you can't have those things you want. Because I'm going to tell you, that guy in the street corner begging, he has conditioned himself to such a degree that no matter how much inspirational things I, as a stranger, lay upon him, all he cares about is the color of the paper that I put into his hat. That's all he cares about. He has lost his ability to have perspective. If you still have perspective, you still have the gift of being able to look in the mirror and saying, hey, what are you screwing up on? If you still have that ability, then you have also the ability to enact the things I've talked about, where you can say, hey, are the ingredients that I'm putting in my recipes the freshest, the best? Is the procedures the best? All that kind of stuff to get what I want. Simple choice. Now you might be terrified that oftentimes the arguments I've heard, so for example, the arguments I heard from this person who's in the hospital now, who's completely surrendered to their perspective, was that they, didn't want to be ostracized, didn't want to be alone, or didn't want to, they had a hard time letting go of the things they knew to do other things. But I'm going to tell you, all the greatest discoveries in the world involved letting go. Whether it was discovering new countries, let's face it, if Carl Benz didn't let go of his love affair with the horse and wagon, we wouldn't be driving cars now. The Wright brothers didn't let go of their fear that they saw that kites could fly, but if they didn't let go and believe that they could fly, we would still be taking the train. The point is, at the end of the day, is perspective is something you're going to have to choose to embrace if you want to get better. Hey, if you like eating burned food or food that tastes like crap, great. If you like always having relationships that are in turmoil and general jeopardy, great. One of the, if you look at my timeline on my Facebook page, a woman that I have a lot of respect for, and you can really see her voyage, the Cluster B Milkshake YouTube channel. She's a woman who is she had a very challenging childhood. And, at some point she sat down with herself and said, you know what, everything is always screwing up. How do I overcome this? And it hasn't been easy for her, and it still continues not to be easy as she revisits some of her emotions. But now she's doing what has become the impossible, and that is to actually having cluster B disorder. She actually has a stable relationship, and she goes through and talks about what she has to do to maintain that stable relationship instead of sabotaging it, which was her patterns in the past. And make no mistake, these personalities don't just sabotage their relationship. Well, they sabotage all the relationships, not just romantic. They sabotage relationships with children, with siblings, with parents, with bosses, like with their employment. They're constantly playing musical job, with where they live. Constant sabotage. And you can stay in that endless loop. But the beauty of the information age that we're in right now, the beauty of me talking to you right now, I mean, the only reason that I do these videos is that there are going to be people, this is my outreach mission, there are going to be people who are going to listen to me, the bearded dude sitting in his lawn chair in the backyard against a hay bale. There are people who are going to listen to me and they're going to be like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, maybe I'll do a little bit of work. I mean, my videos only get like 50 views, but that's a fair number of people. I would never be able to gather 50 people in my backyard. And that's been my mission, is to not only help you with your perspective, but I've changed my perspective as well in regard to many things. The things I will allow in my life and the people I will allow in my life, based on how they choose to behave. Now, that being said, this person that's in the hospital, we have a long history together. At any time in the past, if their perspective had changed a little bit, it would have made it so I could actually have a relationship with them. But that ship has sailed for them, and I'm sorry that that's the case. And as I said, they've succumbed to their psychosis, and well, they don't even having a relationship's not even a thing for them. They're just like, that's the thing about a state of dementia, is it's highly complex. I can't cover it in this diatribe, but it's highly complex. But yeah, it's all about perspective. So, once again, I don't really have any pithy thing to say at the end here that talks about how, you should get perspective and get to it. But really, if you're looking in the mirror, you're looking around, you're saying, gee, my life could be so much better. I could have so much more opportunity. I could have such richer relationships. I could have the love that I want. I could have, so many aspects to, there's so much, in my mind, it's funny. It seems like there's so much upside. Even to the point, like in regard to a lot of perspective, like the reason a lot of people have behaviors which tend to push people away is that it's rooted in things that are inside them that were put there when they were kids. Fear of being rejected, fear of not being good enough, fear of being put in a situation where they have no options. And those are all perspective issues. Because I'm going to tell you right now, once you change your perspective on the world, and you start to expect the best things, I'm not saying bad things aren't going to happen. And I'm not saying that everything's going to be perfect all the time. But you'll be able to, it's just like you'll have an ability. It'd be like, imagine you're at a market, okay? And you see rows of fresh produce. You'll have the ability to more accurately determine which produce to grab. As opposed to randomly just, I'll take this one, and you get home, one's got a worm in it, one's got a scab on it. You'll be able to more effectively pick that produce for your recipe. When you're at the butcher shop, you won't just randomly say, yeah, whatever. You'll be able to look in the case, see the meat that's got the right marbling that you like or whatever, And or maybe you change your perspective on the butcher, and you've embraced his expertise, and you, instead of being worried or leery that he's not going to give you the right thing, you're just like, oh no, my perspective is that it's going to be fine. And the point is, and you know, your cooking procedure and all that kind of stuff, your perspective will change, and as I've said before, what you practice, you get good at, and this will have a spillover effect. So, you know, you get better, become a better cook. Maybe start taking better care of your health. Maybe your home gets a little more order to it. Maybe one or two of your relationships, you make new ones that are really terrific, or you repair old ones, and then it gets a little bigger because, you know, goodness spreads, and so does negativity. You get to choose which environment you want to live in. Do you want to live in a cloud of negativity, or do you want to live in the sun, the sunshine of positivity? So yeah, my petition to anyone watching this video is just sit down with yourself and ask yourself, how's your perspective? Is it serving you? Are you worried that if you know, as I said, this person that I met, that I started this video out, I had some concerns. I had some concerns when I got together with them that it was going to be a shit show. But you know, my moral compunction was that it was more important to do that than to just let it go. And maybe they died and I'd never have that interaction, which is a possibility. I mean, we're all going to die eventually. But I rolled the dice, and I was like, yeah. And in the aftermath, I'm like, yeah, that was a good move. It changed my perspective. Just like my perspective about realizing it was Saturday and not Sunday. So there it is. Anyway, folks, take the time. If you haven't and you're not, I'd appreciate any subscriptions. We're at 750 subscribers right now. I'd like to get over 1,000. That's sort of the first sweet spot. Like the video. If you want to put a like down there, that'd be great. We'll put it out more to people. If you think that other people will care what a bearded dude sitting in his backyard against a hay bale's got to say. And feel free to comment if you've got some interactive questions you'd like to post, either on my YouTube channel or even in the comment section of my Facebook page. I appreciate the engagement. The engagement's nice from this perspective that, sometimes people have ideas that are fun to share. And hey, maybe you'll have a question I can input on, or maybe I'll learn something. I'm always up to learn something. Anyway, folks, thanks for spending a little time with me, and take a minute and work on that perspective.